Hi, it's Bruce here from the Part-Time Prospector. I'm going to talk to you today about finding gold locations. Basically, in other words, where are you going to find gold when you want to go prospecting? Now, WA is a very big state. You can go anywhere you want pretty much that you go and find gold, but there's places where you can go where you can increase the probability of you finding gold. So stay tuned and I'll help you find those places. Okay, so you want to find some gold. The place to do is go and find some gold where others have found gold beforehand. Pretty obvious, isn't it? So what I'm saying is, pull up some maps. If you don't know where to look, go to places like Tengraph, GeoView, which is done by Demers Department of Mines and what's the name in Western Australia, or go and visit my own website, which is goldprospectingwa.com, and use the maps to find out where the gold leases currently are. Now there's two types of leases around WA. There is the live leases and there's the pending leases. Now the live leases are generally coloured green and they just a no-go. Don't touch them, don't get anywhere near them. You can ask for written permission to go on them, but you know, you got basically buckleys of getting on them. The pending leases are another question altogether, another matter basically. What you want to do with those you can go on those because they are waiting to be approved to go to live. And so while they're in that pending stage, anyone can go on there and prospect. You don't need to ask for permission. You can if you want to. You don't need to if it is crown land underneath. If it is freehold land, well, lease situation doesn't make any difference anyways. You're going to have to get written permission for that. So look, turn on the maps, find out the where the pending ground is, and it's generally coloured blue, and all that ground is prospective. Now I'm not saying all of it is, but it's narrowed down the state to distinctive zones. You know, it's probably now looking at about 5 to 10% of the state now that's under the blue. So how do you narrow down that zone of the pending leases from knowing the region and the area down to the actual spot where you go to actually swing a metal detector? I'll show you that after this. Okay, so now that you've got the region that you want to go to, where's the spot? Because some of these leases, these pending leases are big. So where do you go? If you've only got a weekend or a week, maybe even 2 weeks to spend, where do you go to spend your time? You can't go and cover the whole ground. So where do you find out? Now, there's two main ways you can go to find this sort of stuff. One is that you can go and find the old workings that are visible. Now you can either use Tengraph, GeoView, or as I said beforehand, my goldprospectingwa.com website, and you can actually go and actually turn on the layer that says where the old workings are, and that is obviously a very good indicator that gold was there, because the old timers wouldn't have spent days, weeks, months digging shafts in rock hard ground by hand for nothing, or for very low grade stuff. They would have spent time only on rock that was actually paying until they found a better prospect somewhere else, or that bit of gold ran out in that shaft. It doesn't mean that the ground around that shaft had no gold in it, because naturally bits would have broken off and rolling down the hill, and that's what you want to find with a metal detector. So look for the old workings, and the best thing is to look on the map, and if you can see a series of workings heading in one direction and there's nothing, and then another series of workings start again, and it doesn't take much imagination to draw a line between the two, well then definitely concentrate your effort on the line between the two sets of workings, because sometimes there could be outcropping mineralization inside there and there could be gold. So definitely concentrate your time on that. Look on the maps, look where the faults are trending, not the short ones but the big long ones, because the big long ones go down deep, and deep is where the gold fluids came from. The short ones only go down a short bit and they don't carry any fluids coming up. So turn on those geological maps in those applications, Tengraph, GeoView, Trilobite, whatever application you're using, turn on them and then you'll find the structures, the fault zones. The other way to try and find it, and even narrow it down even more, is to go into applications like GeoView and TenGraph and turn on the company reports and use them to help you make a decision on where to go look. Now, what I'm saying here is that when a mining company has a block of land and they do some exploration on it, and they don't find anything of value or big enough, what would you call it, high enough grades to warrant drilling or mining, they'll basically what's called relinquish the lease after a certain period of time. But as one of the conditions of relinquishing the lease is they actually have to hand over a written report with maps of all the sampling and work that was done on that lease as part of their conditions of having the lease in the first time. So we can go back and grab these reports and go through them. Now, sure, they didn't find gold, but remember, they were probably looking for the 50,000, 100,000, 500,000 ounce gold deposit. They're not looking for something that's got 10 or 20 ounces in it. So we need to find in these reports where they show where they did drilling and where they did soil sampling. Now, soil sampling is a great indicator of where gold is. Okay, so most mining companies start off by doing soil sampling across the countryside on a coarse space. They normally start with, say, maybe 50 or 100 meter space samples, maybe 200 or 300 meters space north to south. And they will plot these up on a map and see where what's called the anomalous values occur. These are the gold values in the soil sample that is higher than background. Now, this changes from prospect to prospect and area to area, what value to look for. It is the values that are basically higher than background. So they're looking for anything that's sort of slightly elevated to help identify a gold trend. But you also want to look for those as well, because they can tell you where the mineralized zones are. But also have a look at the actual values themselves, because if the values are high, and I'm talking very high, hundreds if not thousands of ppb, which is parts per billion, basically 1,000 ppb is 1 gram per ton. And if they're getting 1 gram per ton in a soil sample, okay, and when you think of the soil sample, some guy has walked out to a spot, taken a scoop of sand and sieved it. Now, when I used to do soil sampling back in the later 80s and early 90s, we used to take a soil sample, must probably know much more than a small gardening trowel amount, put it in a sieve, which was a -80 sieve, which basically meant only fine stuff would fall through the sieve. The coarse stuff was thrown away and the fine stuff would fall into the sample bag. We would note down the position of the sample bag and move on. Now, if you're getting 1 gram per ton in a sample like that, it basically meant there was a gold nugget inside that sample. And they may have even thrown away bigger samples in the sieving process. So look for those anomalous gold values, especially the super high value ones. They are your indicators. Okay, next trick. Don't believe the location of where they show those soil samples on the map. Modern day soil sampling guys go out there with a GPS, and they may have a GPS like a handheld system or something like that, and they will actually go along, take the sample, press the button, it will record the coordinates of where they are, so yep, you can trust that location. But if the sample was done 20, 30 or 40 years ago, which many of these things are, then that location is best guess. Back in the days when I used to do it, now this is back, as I said, late 80s, early 90s, GPS was only just coming in a scale that we could use it cost effectively for soil sampling. And so what we would do is we'd set up a baseline and then set up a direction of where we were going to go at 90 degrees to the baseline. We'd hold the compass in our hand and so aim it along. Let's say we're going to go due east, and off we would walk into the bush. Now, to obviously you want to put out, so take samples every 50 meters. So to measure the 50 meters, we would have a thing called a hip chain. Basically, it was the ones I used to have was an orange plastic box with a very long piece of string in it, and we'd tie it to the start point, and as we walked along, it ran over a little counter and said how many meters have gone past. And as we got to 50 meters, it made a certain noise, and that's where we took the sample. Now, of course, in many places in the Australian bush, when you walk, you can't walk in a straight line because there's trees and there's bushes and there's breakaways and there's all sorts of things in the way. And so you end up walking all over the countryside. And so when you got to the soil sampling point that you thought it was, you would actually tie a bit of ribbon in the tree or the bush, or put a stake in the ground or a wire flag post or something like that to say the sample, and you may, if the soil sampler was good, you may actually write a number on it. So when the geologist coming back and doing the analysis of the soil samples later on, they would look at these values and say, okay, there it is. Now they knew in their mind that that sample, where it was drawn on the map, wasn't quite really was. It could be anywhere 100 meters out of location. So once they went out looking for those points, they would have to go out in the bush, drive around and look to find where those flagging tape basically was hanging in the bush. Identify the location they wanted, and then maybe resample again. Now this is the key. This is the key for you guys. They would resample again on a much tighter grid spacing. So instead of doing the original 50 by 100, 50 by 200 meter centers sampling, now they may be doing it on a 20 by 20 meter sampling, sometimes by 10 to 10, just to see if they can replicate the number again. If they can, guess what? They're coming back to drill. And this is the next indicator to look for. So if you can find an area on the map that shows multiple phases of soil sampling, bullseye, that is the area to go and hit up. And then if they come along and drill a hole into it, okay, then you know there was good values that are coming back. And then if they have multiple dates or phases of drilling, that's even better. That means there was gold outcropping and it was worth them chasing up. It's not cheap to drill a hole. Tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to drill a hole. By the time you've taken rig mobilization, cleared paths, got guys out there, got guys back out again, just to drill a single hole can be very expensive. So the grades have to be worth it. Use those indicators as ways to find in the ground. You can zoom right in on a spot, detect around there. There's a very, very good chance that you're going to find something around there. Sure, there's got to be junk. Drillers are notoriously bad for throwing oil cans away, pieces of wire, you name it, it's going to be all over the place. But you're in an area that has been, well, for want of a better word, proven by scientific methods with soil sampling and possibly with drilling to prove there's gold there. So use 10 graph, use GeoView, use the company records, the Mindex, however you like to pronounce it, exploration reports. Use packages like goldprospectingwa.com to hone right down to those zones. You can drop a pin on the map, save those pins, put them into your GPS, and the next time when you go out, you've got the perfect spot to go. Happy prospecting.